So, Bohdi Gautama is an elf, and he is an elf who is from a forest region with a people who are somewhat secluded over millennia, probably because he's an elf and they're very old. He isn't very old. He is I'm not going to do the maths, but he's 30, maybe late 20s in whatever those elf years are, which means that he already knows what he's doing, but he has superiors, and he's sort of maybe a little higher than midway on the rungs of their society. He is dressed beautifully, absolutely beautifully. He's a part of a small sect within his people, and they are an organisation who go out to neighbouring towns and villages, and so there's a lot of pomp and pageantry, and out of all of the people in his sect, he's the one that looks the most polished. He has a beautiful full-length flowing crimson robe, like a deep crimson, but over it is green embroidery that actually looks like it's growing with vine and moss, and it comes up to a hood, and his hood actually looks a bit bigger because he has a scarf quite bulkily wound around his head multiple times, and then down around his neck, and it hangs down, and it's that same rich red colour with the vines and the green. And yeah, he's a fancy pants. He also, not that you would see beneath the hood or the wrap scarf, but he's actually quite an ordinary looking dude. He's brown eyes, brown hair. There's nothing truly distinctive, which I don't mind unveiling that he's not fond of. so the over the top dress is definitely something to counter his maybe perception that he might be a little on the ordinary side. In terms of his circumstances, this secluded group from the forest, basically, without going into too much detail, way back in the day, there was an episode of some sort that caused potential danger to the forest. Fire, brimstone, awful stuff. And through partnership with the surrounding towns and communities, they lent labour and water, and they put up fire breaks, and they helped protect the forest. Now, it was to protect their forest because they get resources from it, but it also helped Bohdi and his people. In return for that, Bohdi and his people, being a somewhat martial race, when the disaster had been dealt with, they were seen as easy pickings for the surrounding realms. And so Bohdi and his people were the ones that came to the fore and defended the surrounding towns and communities from would-be robber barons and people looking to take advantage of a wounded realm. And so the consequence of that was a pact. And the pact was that the communities and towns surrounding the forest would be able to harvest and get resources from the forest, but they wouldn't over-forest, they wouldn't over-harvest, and they would allow the forest to grow until it was threefold the size that it had been after the disaster. Bohdi's people, the return was that they and this sect that he's a part of would travel the surrounding towns and communities and villages, and they would educate, and they would heal, and they would settle disputes, and they would basically optimize as much as they can. They optimized farming approaches and things like that. And he has slowly risen through the ranks of this sect that 4 times a year, seasonally, they go out and they do a tour around all of the surrounding towns and villages and countryside, and they are celebrated. It's a carnival atmosphere. Whenever they go into town, they're treated like royalty because of this pact, which was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And he's part of that, and that's why he looks real fancy, because he's part of the pomp, and he similarly thinks he's a pretty fancy dude.
And he is. He is very fancy.
He's a
very fancy guy.
He's a fancy guy.
Super fancy dude.